side.
Hi, good evening, everyone, and a warm welcome to all of you here in another lecture series, for the Seek Sanctuary Green Carbon College Program 2022, supported by Morningstar and Carbon Copy with Sanctuary Nature Foundation. I'm Saurabh Sawant, and I have the pleasure of introducing a friend and a great conservationist a lot of us look up to, Mr. Kedar Gore, who's going to talk about grassroots conservation and involving communities for a coexistence with wildlife. So Kedar is actually, he has an immense experience as far as wildlife conservation is concerned in India. And he has been actively engaged in wildlife conservation and environmental protection work for over 2 decades. He started, his love affair with nature and bird watching goes as far as back as when he was just at the tender age of 10 years. And later on, soon after college, he took up the full-time conservation as a profession in 1996 after he finished his master's in zoology. He has been actively involved in wildlife conservation and environmental protection, as I said, for over 2 decades, and has worked with some of the leading environmental NGOs such as WWF-India, TERI, and the Corbett Foundation. He is currently working with Corbett Foundation, and his overall work area has been wildlife conservation, ecological restoration, human-wildlife conflict mitigation, biodiversity preservation, sustainable livelihoods, conservation education and advocacy and awareness. He joined the Corbett Foundation in 2009 as its director, where he has been instrumental in launching and successfully implementing several landscape level conservation programs in Uttarakhand, Gujarat, Maharashtra, Madhya Pradesh, Assam, and Manipur, benefiting various flagship species such as the tiger, elephant, great Indian bustard, lesser florican, common leopard, pangolin, sloth bear, and many more. I have had the pleasure of doing some workshop for the guides in Madhya Pradesh with Corbett Foundation and Kedar, and it has been a great experience for me as well. So over to you, Kedar. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Saurabh, for this introduction. I'm really happy and honored to be a part of this session. I've always looked up to Sanctuary since my childhood, and I'm always very, very happy when I'm part of Sanctuary program. So thank you very much for inviting me. So is it okay if I start the presentation right now?
Yes, please.
I'm audible, right? Properly.
Yes, we can hear you.
So a warm welcome to all the students who have joined in from various states and various colleges across India. I will be talking about grassroots conservation with my whatever limited experience in 6 states. I don't know if you belong to the state where the Corbett Foundation works right now, but if not, generally these human-wildlife conflict issues are more or less the same, whether it is Kashmir or Tamil Nadu or West Bengal or any other state. So without wasting much time, I will just quickly start my presentation. I'm sharing the screen right now. Is my screen visible?
Yes, very much.
Okay, so I'm going now into the slideshow mode.
Sure.
All right, so as you all know, it is grassroots conservation involving communities for a coexistence with wildlife. It's a very complicated situation, actually, when we talk of wildlife conservation in India. And for students especially, I would like to tell you that it is not really glamorous, as you see in several channels like Animal Planet or National Geographic. I mean, it is beautiful, no doubt. We all are a part of this movement because we all love wildlife. However, when we look at solving the issues that concern the wildlife in this country, they are very complex and very complicated to deal with. Quickly, I will brief you about what the Corbett Foundation is. We were started by Shri Dilip Khatau, whose photograph you can see on this slide. That was in 1994, and it was a World Earth Day. So we are now 27-year-old, and the whole mission of this foundation has been to ensure that human and wildlife live in harmony, and human-wildlife conflict is reduced or completely eliminated in the areas that we work. And we have the illustrious board of trustees whom we all look up to and work under their guidance. I will skip this slide because this is just about what legal status or the Corbett Foundation has. These are all the partners, and we are greatly indebted to all these partners for their support in kind, by way of funds. I'm sure you can also see Sanctuary Nature Foundation's logo in all these partner logos. Then there are many more, but these are just a few partners that we have displayed here. Many of our activities also conform to the Sustainable Development Goals. You must be knowing that there are several Sustainable Development Goals that have been identified by the United Nations, and out of these, nine goals are where the Corbett Foundation activities touch them. And I must express my deepest gratitude to this stalwarts in conservation, Dr. John Singh, A.J.T. John Singh, and Dr. Asad Rahmani, who are the scientific advisors of the Corbett Foundation. And I mean, their support and everything has been tremendous for us. It's gone on auto mode, or somebody changing the slide, I'm not sure. Well, this is generally how we work. These are the conservation landscape in 6 states, 24 districts, and 663 villages. Probably students can just check if your college belongs to one of the states. We are here. We work with the philosophy that every ecosystem is crucial. I mean, we don't, although some of our work is basically around tiger conservation landscape. However, I must make it very, very clear that we are not tiger centric, and we believe that every ecosystem is important, whether you have large cats or not. For example, we have a huge program to conserve the great Indian bustard and desert florican in the western part of this country, in Gujarat and Rajasthan. Plus, we also work in the Western Ghats and a few other landscapes where there are no tigers, but we definitely value the local biodiversity that is there and strive to conserve it. So, as you all can see, that this is our belief that people and wildlife can coexist, and they must coexist. By looking at the number of villages and number of, the population of people that is living in the wildlife landscapes, it's impossible to imagine any landscape with inviolate areas for wildlife. So we must plan, and we must ensure that our conservation programs have to include the local people. They are the stakeholders. Without them, any conservation program, if planned, will certainly fail. We take a 10-point approach. I mean, always Corbett Foundation has taken a holistic approach to wildlife conservation. we can't only look at conservation research. We can't only look at doing camera trapping of tigers or leopards or whatever, but we also need to look at what are the needs of the local communities there. Are they really happy living with wildlife? Do they have any issues with wildlife? Does the wild animals have, do the wild animals have any issues with the people that are sharing the space in that habitat? So all these are questions that we need to ask ourselves, and only then we can plan programs that will have impact on resolving the conflict that is there around these areas. So this is the 10-point approach. We look at conservation-oriented research, habitat restoration, human-wildlife conflict mitigation, sustainable and alternative livelihoods. We also look at One Health approach, where we provide rural medical outreach and primary medical healthcare to the people who are living close to wilderness areas. Plus, there is a veterinary program. We also ventured in watershed. You might be wondering what a wildlife conservation NGO is doing in watershed. However, it is very important. We can't go into much details of every program, but it is important to ensure that economy of local people living there is protected, so that their dependence on wildlife and nature and forest comes down. Conservation education, advocacy, tribal welfare. So these are the 10-point programs. Some of the approaches I will be dealing with in this short presentation. There are more slides and I may go a little fast. I my deepest apology for that in advance. But in the available time, I have tried to compress as much as possible. When we look at local communities, there is huge dependency on forest ecosystems. I mean, these are some of the needs that we have identified are genuine needs. Without these needs, it's impossible for anybody to live, whether it is those local communities in the forest or we living in the cities. But in addition to these, there are some dependency which are extremely hazardous, and these are illegal as well. So doing something like this, living in that landscape, is definitely not good for wildlife, and definitely not a good sign of coexistence. So we also look at some of these issues. Need-based and breed-based dependency of the communities on natural ecosystems often lead to human-wildlife conflict. I mean, I'm sorry I'm using these images. However, this is a fact of conservation. I mean, you have to deal with practically on a daily basis. So take a look at this slide. I mean, if you look at the yellow arrows, you will see that everything that in this village, in this small tribal hamlet in Kanha National Park, they have sourced everything from the forest. And they have been doing this for many, many years. I mean, and while doing this, they knowingly and unknowingly get into the conflict situation with wildlife. As you can see in the text below, there are 177 villages in Kanha, 168 villages in Bandhavgarh, and our outreach has been only 60% in Kanha and only 40% in Bandhavgarh. I mean, there are so many other villages we have not been able to touch and intervene due to lack of funds and limited manpower resources with us. So this is actually, a challenge that we have identified: unsustainable fuel wood harvesting. Just look at the figures here. I mean, the dependence on firewood for various domestic purposes is almost 100% in these villages and in many other landscapes that we have worked. Wood is available free in the forest, so traditional chula is lit, and cooking is a genuine need. So burning wood for cooking is something that every household practices, and we have calculated also the impact of this activity. So on an average, every household consumes about 420 kg of fuel wood per month. Now, annual consumption we have given here is in 9,500 households is 47,880 tons, and Kanha is about 90,000 tons. So it's huge. It's really, really huge. And if you and these are only two tiger reserves. Okay, I mean there are 51 tiger reserves in this country and many other national parks and sanctuaries. So how do we deal with this? I mean, we have to provide a solution because cooking is a genuine need. And in the buffer zone, people are allowed to collect twigs, dry twigs from the forest floor, so that the chula can be run. Uh, but many times it doesn't happen that way, and trees are cut. Planned cutting is done so that they harvest, take as much as fuel wood as possible. You can see the stacks. This is the general picture of practically every household. I mean, you will see stacks and stacks of fuel wood like this in every household. So what we have done, I mean, we have provided about 6,800 energy efficient cook stoves in Madhya Pradesh and Maharashtra, which has the potential to reduce the fuel wood consumption by 50%. We hope, there are people are using these chulas. They find it useful because not only the consumption of wood is less, but even the smoke that it emits is considerably less. So even it's good for the eyes and health of the women who are cooking in these households. We did this also in Tansa Wildlife Sanctuary, where about 3,000 such cook stoves were given. And here the fuel wood consumption is much less than the central India. We found that it is about 200 kg per month. Even then, for 300 households, the 594 tons of fuel wood is being used. I mean, this is just one range of Tansa. It has got 4 more ranges, and there are so many other landscapes where these kind of interventions are necessary. Another thing that we have seen in central India is you can see these large logs of wood actually cut from the forest and used to make the fencing of their cattle sheds and generally fencing around their houses. I mean, this is freely available, so people are merrily using it, and this is far more destructive than even collection of fuel wood from the forest. In this image, you can see on the left large sal trees that were cut from the right side of the image are being used as a fence for their house, their backyard and their own household. So this is happening. I mean, this is real situation in India in many of the wilderness areas. If we don't provide an alternative, this will just go on. Just look at this: 600 mature sal trees were cut to make cattle sheds in just 86 households. We are just talking of 86 households, 600 mature sal trees. I mean, sal forest is one of the important ecosystems in central India and parts of North India. If this is the kind of dependency, then I don't know how sustainable our whole conservation efforts would be. In Kana as well, we found that in 2 villages, about 100,000 trees were cut every 2 years just to make backyard fencing of 10 kilometers. So, if you add the number of villages, I mean, this figure can be humongous. So it's not always large trees that are cut. There are also, smaller trees that are cut. So essentially what happens is the regeneration that takes place, natural regeneration that takes place in the forest is severely affected. And this then gives rise to, lot of weeds being flourishing in that area, especially lantana and many others. So till date, our solution has been we have modified 176 cattle sheds from 5 villages in Bandhavgarh buffer, ensuring that around 1,300 fully grown sal trees are prevented to be cut in 10 years. So this is what the solution is. I mean, it looked like this before, and the picture below, you see that it has been completely replaced by a chain link fence. Same with the village fencing program. You have the previously seen trees were replaced with this kind of fencing. So this, we think, is one of the most practical solutions that we can give to the villagers because it is long lasting. At least 10 to 15 years, this fence will be durable. So we hope that this can be continued further, and even after the full life of this fence, people still continue using these alternative ways rather than biofencing. Grazing pressure is tremendous. Again, remember, whatever I'm talking about today during this session will be only related to community based. So when people live in the forest, this is the kind of dependency they have. A cattle population is humongous. I mean, in Kana, it is 83,000, in Bandhavgarh, 48,000. Most of the cattle, 99% of the cattle will be of very, very poor quality. You can see the condition of the cattle here. The milk that they give will not be more than 1 to 1.5 liters a day. So it is barely enough for a family. In any case, in Central India, use of milk for making tea or drinking in children is absolutely it's not a culture at all. So people don't keep good milk yielding animals in any case. But few keep because they know that there is a market demand and they do it for business. So when the cattle goes out in the forest, not only the forest floor and overall regeneration is affected, but it gives rise to a different level of conflict, which we'll come to later. So we thought we should demonstrate a model where a village can completely stop sending their cattle to the forest. So we experimented with this model of stall feeding in Kana, in one of the villages of Kana National Park, Kana Tiger Reserve, where 10 acres of land has been leased for cultivating grain fodder. And so, we ourselves are implementing this project where maize, persimmon, alfalfa are some of the fodder species that have been grown. In 8 months, 15,000 kg of green fodder has been produced, and this everything is being harvested by the local villagers, and they are stall feeding their cattle. So it's a welcome sign and a welcome intervention even for the villagers, because they recognize that sending cattle out in the forest is not beneficial anymore. First, they don't have any control of what the cattle eats. It may eat even inferior quality of grass in the forest. Some cattle even end up eating lantana, which can be even more problematic for the animal. So if we are providing this fodder, and if they have control over what fodder to be fed to their cattle, they can ensure that the health of the cattle is maintained. And feeding good quality fodder also ensures that the milk yield increases, so it's economic benefit for them. Our challenge identified is degraded forest and buffer zones and corridors. So, if you have been to any of the tiger reserves, say popular tiger reserves like Corbett or Kana, Bandhavgarh, Pench, or these core areas where we have tourism are generally well maintained, and you see a lot of animals. You are very happy when you come back from these areas. However, when you go in the buffer zones, which are very, very important habitats, which technically they should surround the core area, but there, they are multiple use areas. So people live there, people graze their cattle, people collect fodder, people collect fuel wood. So there are a lot of anthropogenic activities that happen there. And as a result, for years, this dependency has created, areas where the forest has been completely destroyed. So how do we, these are technically forest lands. However, you see that there is no forest left anywhere. So how do we restore these lands? We have to intervene. Otherwise, the pressure on core areas will increase more and more, because if you don't find anything there, people are bound to venture into the deeper areas, which are actually core critical tiger habitats. So we, in Kana and Bandhavgarh landscapes, we have surveyed about 550 hectares of degraded forest areas, and we have identified several patches for restoration. Now, restoration is an expensive proposition, and we have been approaching several companies to support us for this work. We have been successful in some areas, and so far, we've look at this map. Actually, this is a Bandhavgarh Tiger Reserve. You see green dots and black dots, which are areas where we have recorded tiger and leopard movements. You can see tiger icons in the corridor area between Bandhavgarh and Sanjay Dubri. So when we took up the restoration work, we consciously decided to take up areas which are around these, tiger bearing areas. This will have to benefit the wildlife in the long term. So a lot of work has been done. Firstly, most of these areas are full of lantana, so uprooting of lantana is a huge task that we have taken up. Large areas have been cleared of lantana. Many of the lantana has been burnt, or some areas, some people have also taken lantana to use as fuel wood. So this is how the restoration work starts, and this is how it progresses slowly. So after this is one of the patches in Bandhavgarh-Sanjay Dubri corridor, where 83 hectares has been taken up for restoration by Corbett Foundation in collaboration with the Madhya Pradesh Forest Department. About 52,000 saplings of local tree and bamboo species have been planted, protected, and nurtured. The result is fantastic. You can see the year-wise transition that has happened in year 3 in 2021. I mean, in 22, after this monsoon, this area will be even better. So we are really very happy with this result, and we are encouraged to take up more areas which we are doing in the coming year. This one is in Kana Tiger Reserve. You can see the difference where the cattle grazing is happening on the left, and our plot, which is on the right side, where the grazing has been stopped. See the difference in the growth of grass. So this regeneration is extremely important. This is how the difference is if you allow grazing and if you don't allow grazing. So even buffer zones can be turn out to be as good as or even better than core zones in many areas. Another advantage of this is these protected plots. People have been harvesting grass from them, from these plots. This has been an additional benefit actually. Just in a small patch of 5 hectares, 32,000 kilo of grass that has been grown naturally has been harvested to feed about 75 cattle. All cattle then around that area is stall fed. So the dependency on that forest goes down. Less cattle are venturing into the forest. Probably less cattle will be killed by the tigers and leopards. There would be less chances of disease transmission from domestic cattle to wild herbivores. We have also taken this restoration efforts in Corbett Tiger Reserve. These are private lands which people had abandoned, but we talked to them. We said that we will help you in restoration. We have removed the lantana and planted a lot of trees, about 1,200 saplings of local species that would provide them with fuel wood and fodder. See the height of these trees here, and actually you can see in this slide where local women are collecting grass. You can see the grass, bundles of grass being stacked in one place so that they can collect and take it back. So this, we have to just guide the people that, okay, this is possible. And once you handhold in these kind of activities, these are absolutely sustainable. These are their own lands. We don't, this will just go on because we have showed them the way. The challenge in this landscape is, and that's a huge challenge, not only in this landscape, but in most areas in peninsular India, where there are open wells in, in forest areas and around forest areas. I mean, there are several incidences where large mammals fall in these wells. Tigers, leopards, bears, even elephants have, fallen into such wells, and they have lost lives, sometimes even crippled. We are not even talking of the smaller animals here, because most of the times the attention is always on the glamorous and bigger mammals. But this is a huge problem. So how do we address it? I mean, in Bandhavgarh itself, we have seen so many open wells, and so far we have covered 1,500 open wells in Bandhavgarh and Bandhavgarh-Sanjay Dubri corridor. And if you look at the yellow box here in this slide, there are about 3,800 open wells still remaining in Bandhavgarh Tiger Reserve to be covered. We are on this job, and hopefully we will get sufficient funds to complete this work as early as possible, because in core zones, if there is any accident, if any tiger or any other animal falls inside, there may be days before this can be found out because they are in dense forest areas. Firstly, many of the wells are so densely covered with lantana or any other, trees. It's impossible for even local forest people to find these wells and, find any accidents being taken place. So it's important we cover that. Territory killings of tigers and leopards is a problem in this country. There are many, many cases that happen. So, I mean, the project that I am talking about is the flagship project of the Corbett Foundation. This is one of the oldest. I can say with confidence that it's one of the oldest tiger conservation programs ever implemented by any NGO in this country. And we are extremely grateful to WWF-India because they have been our partners, funding partners in this activity for more than 20 years now. It started off in 1998 as interim relief scheme where Corbett Foundation started paying ex gratia amount to the villagers who have lost their cattle to tiger and leopard attacks in Corbett. And before that, there were a lot of cases of poisoning that took place because of retaliation by local people, because people expect that forest department should pay them the compensation quickly, and sometimes there are delays, and these delays can really affect their psyche, and they can resort to this kind of behavior, which is very, very dangerous for tigers and leopards. So we started this activity, and these retaliatory killings have practically stopped. Since 1998, just look at the highlighted text, 19,000 livestock depredation cases from Corbett, and we are also doing in Kana. So in both these tiger reserves, 19,000 livestock depredation cases have been attended to by the Corbett Foundation and WWF-India. In this scheme, the amounts spent is humongous, again, about 3.73 crores or equivalent to 490,000 USD, which is huge. I mean, to somebody to commit a fund of this magnitude for so many years is itself a great success and commitment towards conservation. This model should be actually spread in many other tiger reserves, because if there are no such NGO working there, it's difficult to control the retaliatory killing of such large cats and other animals. So this is a map of Kana Tiger Reserve where we observe tiger and leopard depredation cases. In Corbett Tiger Reserve and surrounding areas, which is Ramnagar Forest Division and Sarai West Forest Division, these are the cases that we look at. There are about 380 villages we cover under this scheme. Our team is practically busy going every day, at least attending 2 to 3 kills, because people call us, and we visit the site. We ensure that the kill is genuine. We undertake all the paperwork, photographs are taken, and that is shared with the forest department. And based on that, many times the forest department provides them the full compensation. But this immediate intervention within few hours is absolutely essential so that we control the anger that may crop up in their heads. A human-elephant conflict. I mean, this is another issue that we all are worried about. Unfortunately, today, as we speak, I mean, one elephant has died due to electrocution in Kaziranga in Assam. So elephants are there. I mean, they were there always. People have, the villages have spread. There have been other encroachments. Tea gardens have come up. So the natural movement of elephants from Kaziranga National Park to Karbi Anglong Hills is greatly affected. See this, I was talking about this death of elephant today. So sorry to see this, and very, very unfortunate. This could have been avoided. However, we need much more awareness and much more stricter laws to deal with these kind of losses. So I was talking about elephant movement between Kaziranga National Park and Karbi Anglong Hills. You can see KNP, which is Kaziranga National Park, and on the bottom side is green area, which is the Karbi Anglong Hills. There is a natural movement between these two areas of elephants. There are several such identified corridors, as we can see wherever there are elephants. So elephants keep coming and going from these areas, and whenever there is paddy season, elephants love paddy. Paddy is rice. So they love rice whenever it is ready to be harvested. That smell attracts elephants, and they come in large herds, and it, they just want to eat the paddy. However, in that process, they destroy the field. So to prevent elephants from coming, people may use fireballs or spears or any such material uh, which will harm the elephants. So we have worked with the local community, and we have provided them with lookout points, or tongis as they are locally called. We have also provided solar fencing, as you can see the blue patches here. The solar fence and if you look at the watchtowers, this is how the watchtower looks like. You can see the local people have been provided some material from the Corbett Foundation, and rest of the material they have themselves done. They take the responsibility of building these watchtowers whenever it is needed during the harvest season. As soon as the harvesting is complete, this entire thing is dismantled and kept safely to be reused again in the next season. Uh, so instead of spears, now they are using these watchtowers. We have provided them with high beam torches with which they can see the elephants coming from a distance, and by flashing these torches, elephants are actually running away. And we have been using this for last more than 5 years, and it has been successful in driving away elephants without any conflict. So bringing down the losses of paddy being eaten by elephants has significantly come down. So far, 300 such watchtowers have been provided. Uh, about 28 kilometers of solar fence has been erected to prevent crop raiding by wild elephants. So this is also done in Kaziranga landscape. Again, on the left, you can see one picture of elephant being electrocuted, not due to solar fence, but due to live wire that was set up by some villager to prevent that elephant from coming into his field. Now, I will quickly come to the Great Indian Bustard landscape in Gujarat, where we have demonstrated a very good model involving the local communities, where habitat has been restored. At the same time, it is taking care of their needs of cattle grazing. So there we work with a village of Kanakpur, which is in the landscape of Great Indian Bustard, in the eco-sensitive area of the Great Indian Bustard Sanctuary in the Kutch. Uh, uh, we have taken up about 55 acres of land so far. Initially, it was 40 acres. Now we have added 15 more acres, where we have practiced rotational grazing. So this area actually was full of prosopis like this. You see the top left image, where there are dense prosopis in this entire patches. And these are actually traditional gochar, traditional grazing lands of villagers. So they used to actually, graze their cattle eventually, but due to neglect and abuse of these habitats, actually, these have turned into these, dense thickets of prosopis, which is extremely dangerous because it's an exotic weed, and it totally affects the natural grassland ecosystem of that area. So we had to remove the prosopis from that area and see the same area in the below picture, in the bottom picture. It has turned into a natural and semi-natural grassland. It's a combination of natural grasslands that we have allowed to come up in that area. In some areas, we have also planted some grasses so that people can harvest them. So the entire village is a part of this. You can see these women, all of them are working in this grassland in collecting the seeds so that they can use these seeds in the next year before rainy season. It's a very good model, and we thank our supporters for this. The local administration has greatly appreciated In fact, recently, this village also got an award, an international award for this work. One of the activities that we also demonstrated that works is, we convinced some farmers right in the Great Indian Bustard habitat to go completely organic as far as their fields are concerned. They were initially skeptical, so we assured them that whatever, if there is any, loss in going organic, we will bear it. Corbett Foundation will bear it, and they agreed to this. And I'm really happy to say that there was no loss, but there was a bumper crop. And when they were not using any pesticide in their fields, there were rosy pastors or rosy starlings. Those birds came and actually were feeding on the grasshoppers and other insect, so-called pests that destroy the crops. So, I mean, it works. I mean, if you work with the local people, if you convince them, it really works. And this is, we marketed it ourselves as GIB Green Gram. They sold it off. I mean, this entire crop was sold in less than 24 hours. To work with the local women of the villages that are there in our project areas. One of the partners that we have is Pashupakshi.com. This company has done tremendous work with a lot of such women who are from villages that are in tiger reserves of Kana, Bench, and nearby areas. So they've produced some beautiful products that they themselves are marketing through their website. At the same time, these women are. This is our center actually in Kana, where we have established this this Silai training center, and the women from local village, they are actually working there almost every day, and in the last 6 months their income has been 1,25,000. I'm talking of this income may not seem large for city people like us. However, in these areas where annual average income can be anywhere up to 50,000 rupees only. I'm talking of family income. So this can be significant in that area. And I'm sure this will go up as they get more skillful in the work that they are doing. So we encourage this kind of, collaborations, and we have done many such, livelihood programs earlier. Through our programs, more than 4,000 local women and young people have been trained in several skills. These are some bamboo handicrafts that our beneficiaries prepared in Kana. These are from Kana and Bandhavgarh. These are basically bone paintings. So some products were made like this, and all this has been sold. We have taken some responsibility on ourselves, but most of these have been sold through local markets itself. These are some products from Kaziranga. Kaziranga in Northeast, I mean, they have some fantastic handloom weaving skills, and we just enhance those skills, provided with some seed money, and they can prepare wonderful stuff. This is very recent. I mean, we started working in Amboli Dodamar Conservation Reserve in Maharashtra, and their local women were trained in making products from coir and bamboo, of course. But coir is especially I would like to mention, because these these areas, a lot of langurs and even giant squirrels, they destroy coconut. So coconut, before harvesting also, these coconuts are wasted for them. So the people complain. I mean, they wanted us to give a solution. So we said, okay, fine, we will, see to it that the dried coconuts are made use of into some kind of products. And these are now available for sale in the market. Market linkages have also been done for them. Quickly, I will talk about this One Health program. As I said, we also provide medical and veterinary support. Now, it's very, very important that you provide these facilities to the people who are living there. There are areas where primary healthcare center, government-run primary healthcare center may not be there even for 50 kilometers. So what do the people do if they don't have this facility? I mean, they then obviously go to a witch doctor or, do some kind of treatment which should not be done. I mean, especially in cases of snake bites. So we provide them these kind of services so that there is medical facility available at the doorstep. Even same happens with the veterinary support, vaccination of cattle, treatment of cattle, artificial insemination, so that we encourage people to have better breed of cattle rather than having some nondescript breed which only is a dependent on the forest resources, and it hardly provides them any benefit. We have also ventured into conservation educations. These are some of the resources that we have prepared. There is one game also which we have prepared. I wish I had put some picture here, but this is a tribal museum. As I said, we deeply respect the tribal culture of any area, and we strongly believe that this is something that is absolutely a rich tradition that we must protect. And so this is our this was our contribution to this tribal culture in this area. A tribal museum was constructed just at the outside Tala Gate. This is the interior of the museum. Unfortunately, after COVID, this was just before COVID, and in COVID, the whole thing fizzled out. Anyways, this is how this was done. And okay, so this was in short what I wanted to talk about. The community-based conservation activities that we have done. Let me tell you here that these are only few of the activities that the Corbett Foundation has done. There are many more. However, in the interest of time, I had to restrict to only some of the activities that I put it on the slides here and shared the information with you. I thank you all for a patient hearing, and I'll be very happy to answer any questions that you have. Over to you, Saurabh and Prachi. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Kedar, for such a great and insightful presentation about the work that Corbett Foundation is doing, and you are heading it. We have some questions. First, if the students want to ask any questions, it is open for questions. Kedar wants to say
yeah. You said I'm heading it. Yes, technically I head the Corbett Foundation, but I must say here that if it was not for every staff member who is absolutely dedicated conservationist in our team, this would not have been possible. So I will actually want to share this entire credit with all the team members of the Corbett Foundation, including my senior colleagues and till our drivers who have been actually going into the field, risking their lives, checking on cattle kills of tigers and leopards. I mean, that is something incredible they have been doing for so many years. Hats off to them. I'm grateful, actually. I'm honored to be a part of this team. Thank you very much.
That is so true when you say that, because this is such a tough field, and none of the people who work in conservation can be there unless they're really passionate about it. It's such a tough field in terms of the conditions that they have to work in, the kind of financial compensation that they get for it, and the risks that are involved in it. So unless one is really passionate and one really cares about it, it's very, very difficult to be in this field, and that is why we all are there. And I think we all appreciate that. So if students, if you have any questions, you can just unmute yourself and ask. Or you can also put it in the chat box.
Hello, everyone.
Yeah.
So yeah, I do have a question. The Corbett Foundation has been working in this field for more than 20 years. So in your experience, do you think the challenges have grown in those years or come down?
That's a very interesting and good question, actually. I would say that the challenges have grown. And there is a reason for it. In fact, two reasons. One reason is because human population is ever increasing. There has been never a dip in population growth of human beings. Second, because of good protection in many of the national parks and sanctuaries, and that even the wildlife population has increased. So if tigers increase, if elephants increase, they are bound to have some negative impact on the people, or vice versa. The other problem is the connectivity between good protected areas is reduced drastically. The corridors are fragmented, the forests are degraded. So if any tiger has to move from one area to another, it hardly has any forest areas left. So if you look at several of the so-called tiger journeys from one PA to another PA, I mean, they have traversed to they have crossed highways, they have crossed fields, and so if at all it comes across any human being, if there is a for example, if somebody is attending a nature's call, I mean, this is a very serious issue, okay, in this country. Our rural folks, they tend not to use toilets, and this is absolutely a serious issue. Although government is providing them with the grants and the toilets are built, but those toilets are used to be used as in storage rooms. So if there is an accidental encounter, then what happens? So these are issues that are growing in magnitude as protection level increases, as the population of some of the animals increase. So this is going to be a serious issue in the coming years. So we need to be absolutely, upfront in thinking what we can do about it. It's not going to be, we should not take it lightly that, okay, now we have 3,000 odd tigers, and now in this new count, the tiger figure, I'm sure, will go up. So it's not very a happy situation. We may end up in a problem of plenty because the tigers are going up, the habitat is shrinking, or it is not at all increasing. So what do we do with that? That is going to be a $1 million question that our policymakers must ask. Thank you. Next question, please.
I think as much as we do is going to be always not enough as far as the current state of environment and wildlife habitats and protection is. So I think it's an ongoing effort all the time. And every small bit that anybody can do for it counts. And it counts really big, and it will go a big way subsequently. We have a question from our viewers on YouTube. It's from Vishal Ahuja. He is from Chamba, Himachal Pradesh. He's asking, when we approach villagers regarding reforestation, the very first question they ask is, will it not attract more raiders to their farms? How do you deal with that kind of a situation?
Yes, this can be a question that people can ask. But as I said, if there is no reforestation, even then there would be predators coming to that area. Because not having forest, because you would have less number of herbivores feeding on their farms. I don't buy this argument at all. Because if you have less forest, for example, you will have more animals trying to feed on their farms. If you can provide that food into the in the forest that you recreate, probably your dependency on your farm will come down. And every person, if that person family is having a farm in a forest landscape, then I think it becomes important for that family to ensure the safety of the farm. There are ways to deal with it, as we have done in Kaziranga. Probably there would be some local acceptable solution in that area. I'm really sorry, but I don't have experience of working in Chamba. Though I have seen that area. So working with local people is absolutely necessary. I mean, in Uttarakhand also, wherever we have done such activities, people have actually, come and supported us. I'll give you an example. In north zone of Corbett Tiger Reserve, which is a hilly area, we can say lower, Himalayan foothills and lower Himalayas. So there is a lot of problem of sambar and cheetal coming to their fields, when they have harvesting season. So we experimented with them. We provided them with some blinking lights. We provided them with, even now chain link fence has been provided to that, those farmers. We didn't include the slide here, but we have done that work and it has worked. Now we know for sure that up to about 4.5 to 5 feet, if we have a fence, a sambar is not going to risk its life in jumping off the fence and coming into that area. So far there has been no crop reading in that place. So it's necessary that some hand holding has to be done with with such families, because they have been I'm sure they have been affected due to crop raiding by wild animals for many years. So some acceptable solution has to be derived at.
Kavish, you had another question. You had raised your hand.
Yes, actually I do. So my question was, like when you start conservation in a particular area, you often quickly realize that it is not possible without the involvement of the local people, right? So, so when you start conservation, and especially I'm viewing from a perspective of a non-profit organization that is just starting out, right? So there's a huge shortage of funds. So you'll realize that for conservation, you'll have to put efforts into community well-being as well, right? So it often gets difficult prioritizing where to put your funds, right? Should you help the community directly? Should you put funds directly into conservation? So how do you manage that?
Yeah, so it's a very good question, actually. Even when we started working in Corbett Tiger Reserve or anywhere else, as you have seen that we have a lot of community welfare activities, that One Health, the primary healthcare program, veterinary program. Now, these are programs that actually are implemented in the first place to gain the trust of the community. Because directly, if you approach them and tell them, okay, leopards ko bachana hai, tiger ko bachana hai, they will kick you out of their village. You have to gain that trust by first going and telling them, okay, we recognize that you are living in a difficult area. We recognize that you don't have access to primary health care. So we are giving you this effort, and this has to be consistent. When I showed the pictures, it's not a one-off camp that Covert Foundation does. We have doctors on our payroll. Every week, that village is visited. So there is a regularity. The doctors know the people know the doctors, they recognize. So this is how the rapport is built. And once that rapport is built, then, in the same villages, we approach for the conservation education program. Now, many of the villages we worked in corridor areas, they didn't even have electricity. They still don't have electricity. So they have been living in darkness for many years. So, I mean, we living in cities, can we even imagine that there is no electricity around us? No. I mean, we'll go mad in a day. So, but those people are living for years. So we have then, contacted donors and supporters and provided them with solar lights and, any activity that will make their life a bit easier in that landscape. So once that is done, there is some amount of trust that is there. Plus our livelihood programs that again are giving them the benefit of additional income. So even when we approach the CSR companies, many companies have the mandate as only medical, only healthcare, or only livelihood. So we try to tell them that, okay, fine, you have that mandate, absolutely fine. So we also have a community in our area where all these are necessary. So we try to get those funds for the community that we are working in. So directly going and starting conservation activities may not be easy and may not be appropriate actually. So start working from a basic need of that community to build rapport and develop confidence in them. That is the approach we have taken. I hope that helps.
Yeah, thank you so much.
So do you think that building on that, only say awareness activities or making people aware of the pros and cons of their activities around in and around the forest wouldn't work unless and until you start building that rapport with them, start building that trust with them? So would that be right? So if you just have awareness activities or camps, that wouldn't really work and it would be really short lived. Would that be right to say?
Yes, I would say that way. I would say that way because see, we have to understand, we have to keep ourselves in their shoes first to
Yeah.
make any kind of program. If I was living there, if day in and if every day, I have to risk my life in going in the forest where there are sloth bears and there are elephants and tigers and collecting firewood. If I have to live in darkness, I don't know if I'm stepping on a snake or what. Or I'm waiting for wild boars and other animals to come and eat my crop. So we need to understand their difficulties because they are completely agitated because of all this. And if there is no NGO who is there to sort of soothe their feelings and make some kind of a dialogue between them and the forest department or any other agency that can give them the compensation. So they will always have that grudge against wildlife and animals around. So if we start talking, yes, tiger is a national animal, usko bachana hai. So why would I listen to you?
Correct.
I mean, I would say first you tell me how I will protect myself from that animal and other animals, which is fair. I think this is a fair need of any person. If we look at it, if we address that, then anybody is willing to support. The second, step should be to provide them the kind of economic benefit because of the wildlife around them. And tourism is one of the options, but not the kind of tourism now which has spread everywhere in tiger reserves, where the gypsy kind of tourism is not something that we should only be propagating. There are various other responsible tourism methods that can be adopted. Community-based tourism is something that can be propagated. There are several such wilderness areas, I mean, away from these tiger reserves. I'll give you just example. If you talk of importance of tiger in Tala and nearby villages in Bandhavgarh, they will all be supporting tiger conservation because उनका घर चलता है tiger conservation से. You go 50 kilometers away from Tala and go into the corridor area. You talk of tiger conservation, they will come with a stick to beat you. If you talk of bhalu ko bachaiye, they will come and even beat you more because some of their family members or friends have been attacked by a sloth bear and mauling has happened. Unke liye economic benefit kuch hai nahi, there is zero. So if you don't have any programs that will benefit them, then why will they support conservation? We need to have a holistic approach. That's why it can't be always tiger centric and in specific areas. It has to spread out. It has to go into areas where people will benefit. I mean, you have to, link conservation to economy, and it is possible. We have seen it, flourishing well in tiger bearing areas. So why not in other areas?
Right. So I certainly agree that tourism is beneficial. But as you correctly pointed out, right now the tourism is very concentrated in pockets all around these big tiger reserves, which are very popular even with tourists and clients from overseas and all that. How do you think, what would be the right way of actually diffusing that and trying to, spreading it around these other corridor areas or even around wildlife sanctuaries or in around buffer areas or territorial forests where people can actually benefit from it? And what would be the right way to do that?
The first thing that needs to be done is changing the mindset of the government agencies that are implementing these activities. One must understand that in India, whether it is tourism or wildlife tourism, it is controlled by the government, and which is fine. I mean, there's no problem in that. However, there should be a mindset which welcomes new ideas, a mindset that can definitely accept that, okay, these areas also can come under the purview of wildlife tourism. If we are only thinking of wildlife tourism, कि वहाँ पे gypsy होनी चाहिए और gypsy चलेगी, then that is something not that I would suggest. We should encourage wherever possible, with due safety of the tourists, of course, walking in the forest, sitting over machans. These are activities which people are missing out in tiger reserves. If we are going to Karnala and sitting for hours to take that ODF, oriented dwarf kingfisher, then why can't we sit in these areas and shoot some exciting bird that is found there? So our focus should shift from large mammals to other things, smaller life forms, insects, birds, reptiles. I mean, there are so many, hundreds and thousands of species that are there in that forest, but we end up seeing only a tiger and nothing else. That is something is extremely disturbing. So there is a way to look at it, but it needs a complete change in how, firstly, conservation is looked at and how wildlife tourism is defined in this country. Unfortunately, in India today, wildlife tourism is equivalent to tiger tourism.
Right. I think it is the responsibility of the tourism industry also to change these things, because nobody's really marketing anything else. I mean, I've led tours for clients from overseas who are interested in, say, insects or watching reptiles and even moths and butterflies. So that kind of thing, I think that responsibility lies unto the industry to promote these kind of things. And I think these linkages should work fine if we actually look at all your ecological restoration activities. Once the wildlife comes in, the beneficiaries are going to be the people around those places. And if we promote it right, so and the industry collaborations are extremely important in that sense.
But the industry, okay, they can market it that way. However, that infrastructure also needs to be in place.
Yes.
So industry has to. It's a process where multi-stakeholder dialogue has to take place. All players have to come on a table and discuss. Okay, this is what is needed, and this can be done. Nothing is impossible. We were talking of very simple things. We don't want to. We are not saying that there should be lavish resorts set up in that area. No, even homestays. Some support, some seed money given to the local community in developing homestays, which have got decent facilities, where clean facilities for people to stay. Why can't it be done? I mean, there are examples in India. It's not that it's not happening at all, but I would say there are very few. If we really do this, I can with conviction say that half of the poaching will just vanish from this country. Because people are not fools. I mean, they will not try to, kill the golden egg laying goose in a shot. They would want to protect it, right?
So true, so true. Any more questions? Do we have anything else on YouTube, Prachi?
No other questions.
Okay, great. Then thank you so much, Kedar, for your precious time and talking to us. I'm sure the students will be benefiting it greatly from it. Thank you so much.
I hope so. Thank you, Saurabh. Thank you, Prachi. Thank you, Mr. Saigal, for this opportunity. Thank you, Sanctuary Nature Foundation. Thanks to all the students and everyone who has joined on YouTube. Please post questions in the comment section whenever it goes. It stays on the Sanctuary page. I'll be glad to answer questions. Thank you once again for inviting me, and all the best to all the students, and stay safe. Thank you. Namaste.
Thank you.